Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Hopefully, we're having a good start to our week, and we do have some severe weather out there to discuss today in kind of two distinct parts of the country, one of which back in the east, and the other one back out kind of towards the Great Plains. So, we're definitely going to talk about that, and today is not the only day we're going to be dealing with that. We have really the next 3 days at least of some widespread severe weather to talk about in parts of the country. So that will kind of be the big focus of today. We're also going to talk about these summer-like temperatures we're experiencing and who I think could kind of get a bit of a relief from that over really as soon as the next 24 to 48 hours. So that will definitely be nice for some of us, but don't get too used to it because once you start getting into late May and start getting into June, you get to that point of the year where the 80s are almost nice because, we're getting really close to summer and it's going to, kind of bring that summertime weather with it, I guess, as you would expect. So any kind of cool downs we do get over the next week or two, really enjoy it and take advantage of it because before you know it, we're really going to be in the dog days of summer and it's just going to be nonstop 90-degree weather with afternoon thunderstorms and, my videos might not even be all that useful because you'll know what to expect. Anyway, though, I do want to say now I'm probably not going to have a video out tomorrow. I'll just tell you now because just the timing really isn't going to work out that well with all I have planned tomorrow, including kind of packing up here, leaving, and then getting back home. But I will definitely have a video out Thursday, even if it is Thursday morning. I know that might be a little strange to have a morning video, but I definitely promise nonetheless to have a video out Thursday because, my schedule on Thursday is also a little iffy, but I'll definitely make sure to have a video. As for this weekend, should be fine to have a video Friday. Saturday, of course, we're taking off, which is also good anyway because I have plans on Saturday. But either way, I will be back Sunday for an update on next week. So that's all I really know about my schedule right now. Again, I'm kind of a busy guy, so especially right now with everything that is going on, just kind of a little extra busy. So I do apologize about all of that, but I will really try in this video to give you as much information that we know right now and get you as caught up and up to date as possible. I think with all that said, though, we should be good to go. One thing also that I will mention is, actually, never mind. I'm not going to mention that because it doesn't matter. So we'll actually talk about the weather now. Okay, so we'll start with radar like we normally do here, and we'll kind of take a look at a couple different places. But right now, the big story that's ongoing at this moment is this big, strong line of storms back towards Kansas. And this has a lot of hail in these storms, very strong winds, and even, a couple probably spin-up tornadoes as well. But right now, this is mainly just a big old wind and hail bag, as we like to call it, meaning really just bring your car into the garage and, if you're outside, go inside and kind of bring anything inside with you that you can. The other kind of two stories we have is this area of low pressure down here towards Texas, and this kind of came in off the Gulf, kind of spun up out here, nothing tropical, but it's kind of spun up out here, and then now it's working its way inland, and you'll see on the models here in a couple minutes that this is actually going to get pretty far inland and bring some rain even all the way up into Oklahoma going into tomorrow. So kind of the third area we're looking at here is down into the southeast where we have another area of severe weather, specifically here into eastern North Carolina and eastern North Carolina and southeastern Virginia. I really need a sticky note. I say this, but I need to put a sticky note so I know what directions I'm talking about because sometimes I really just give the wrong directions and I apologize about that. But anyway, going back to talking about the severe weather here. Again, we're going to be watching in this area for that severe weather today, but honestly, even you can see outside of that, in Alabama, we have a severe storm right now. So it's really just that time of the year where even though this is the greatest likelihood of severe weather, anybody that has a storm pop up today here in the southeast, that storm could become severe and, quickly produce some large hail and damaging winds. Luckily, the tornado threat is pretty close to zero here, especially outside of southeastern Virginia. Again, need a sticky note. Southeastern Virginia and northeastern North Carolina. There's kind of a small tornado threat here today, but it's really localized. It's nothing super crazy, and I really don't expect anything, anything massive to come out of it. So that's radar. That's what we're seeing right now. The other big time story are these temperatures. So we're getting up into, the widespread 90s now here into the kind of coastal plain of South Carolina and the sandhills of North Carolina. So you're kind of our big winners today in terms of the heat down here into the Carolinas. So areas further back out to the west, we're likely getting some clouds to bubble up this afternoon, helping to keep the temperatures from rising too much. But here in Charlotte, I'll tell you, looking outside the window right now, it is super sunny. We don't really have many cumulus clouds developing right now, although that could change over the next couple of hours. and you'll see that as we look at the future model here in a minute. But first, I do want to talk about the severe weather chances today. So again, we're already seeing that severe weather back out into Kansas like we looked at, I should say. Sorry, speaking is hard sometimes. And then back here in the Carolinas, also that chance of severe weather today, just a slight risk here into eastern North Carolina. So again, nothing off the charts, but definitely enough you want to keep your eye out in this portion of the country. And this will really begin, I want to say, probably 3, 4, 5 o'clock is whenever I would expect those storms to really begin to fire up in kind of this yellow and green area here into the southeast. Then the other area down here into the kind of Gulf Coast of Texas and Louisiana, as we do have that low pressure there that has kind of enough wind energy with it to potentially create a couple strong storms. All right, so that's today. Looking at tomorrow, that area is really back out west, as far west as Denver and much of Wyoming, western Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota. So this is, pretty way out there into the Great Plains. This is really kind of right at the foothills of the Rockies kind of severe weather day. So I always kind of think this is interesting to see these storms out this way. And this is a place of the country that I don't want to say gets robbed of severe weather, but so often it's much further back to the east that we see those severe storms. So it'll definitely be interesting to see some of these stronger storms in a place like Wyoming tomorrow, where it's not quite as common as some other places in the Great Plains. And I'll tell you why that is whenever we look at the models here in a minute, why we're getting that severe weather so far west tomorrow. And then going into day 3, that does finally shift back into a bit more of what I would consider traditional tornado alley. And again, all hazards on the table here into the Great Plains going into day 3, which is Thursday. So definitely watching that as well. All right, so now looking at the futurecast for the near term, again, what I want you to focus on here, depending on where you're at, of course, is kind of these severe storms back out into Kansas, this area of strong thunderstorms into the Carolinas, and this kind of low pressure down here into Texas. Those are kind of the big 3 areas to watch as we look into the next 48 hours. So again, moving this into this evening, we get these storms to pop up here into the Carolinas, anywhere really from Greenville, Spartanburg, down through Augusta, all the way back up towards Norfolk and the Virginia Beach area. So anywhere in between there could see a strong storm, but especially up into eastern North Carolina, I think. Also, by this evening, this line of storms really is maturing into Kansas and, producing a lot of lightning, hail, and strong winds. And, of course, still these scattered thunderstorms down into the Gulf of Mexico with that low pressure. Now, as we move into the overnight, all of these kind of modes of severe weather are going to continue to progress in the direction they are moving. So I think by the time we get towards midnight, we're all clear in the Carolinas. And luckily, this high pressure is going to really begin to move in and bring in some drier air to the Carolinas. So I think tomorrow will be much drier in the Carolinas, not nearly as muggy as today is, and also not quite as warm. So likely more into the higher 70s, lower 80s tomorrow compared to the 90s we're seeing right now back into that region. So also overnight tonight, expect this line of storms into Kansas to continue to progress down towards Oklahoma, and this low pressure to also continue to progress up towards Oklahoma. So Oklahoma kind of going to get sandwiched a little bit here in between 2 different kind of storm systems. So as we get into tomorrow afternoon, again, notice we are much drier here in the eastern half of the country as that high pressure settles in. But it's a different story back out here into Texas and Oklahoma as that low pressure and that southerly flow continue into this region. And we really just continue that summertime weather tomorrow afternoon, and that will even continue into tomorrow evening before eventually going into Thursday afternoon, and we have that severe weather way back out west, and continuing rain also back out into the Great Plains with some of that summertime weather. Now, looking at tomorrow's high temperatures, I want to show this to you just because of how drastic it is compared to today. National Weather Service going with a high of 76 in Raleigh tomorrow, 78 in Charlotte, and 81 in Columbia. So this is likely going to be 10 to 15 degrees below what we're going to see today, and also not nearly as muggy. So that will definitely be kind of a welcome change. But unfortunately for you folks that aren't going to quite get influenced by this high pressure as much, it's still going to be very warm. So widespread 90s tomorrow into Mississippi, Alabama, definitely Florida, and even up into sections of western Tennessee, I think could also get into some of those really warm temperatures tomorrow afternoon. All right, so why are we going to see all this? Why are we going to see this cool down? It's all responsible for, or it's all going to be because of this high pressure that we see here in the eastern half of the country going into Wednesday afternoon. And you'll notice, again, the way that this works is we're going to get this kind of flow, and that is going to help to bring just cooler, drier air up from Canada down through the backside of the Appalachian mountain chain. And we're going to get a bit of a wedge, as we like to call it, which just means we get kind of a different air mass compared to the surrounding air mass down here into the Carolinas. But the reason we're going to see all of this severe weather back out into the Great Plains is because of a couple factors. So one, it is partially due to this high pressure. This is kind of bringing, down this way, and then we have more kind of that same general pattern back out west. So what this is going to do is force air to go to the north or have southerly flow in between these two features, and that is going to feed very warm, unstable Gulf air as far north as places like Wyoming, and that combined with a storm system developing definitely spells trouble for the chance of some strong storms tomorrow afternoon back out in those areas so far west. So that will continue really through Thursday as well, again, as we looked at that severe map for Thursday. And I think Thursday we're still going to be holding on to this drier air east of the Appalachian chain, but everywhere in between kind of the Rockies and the Appalachian chain here are going to have kind of not as nice weather. Again, you're going to be dealing with this very warm southerly flow, so we're going to have plenty of afternoon thunderstorms, very warm weather still on Thursday, before eventually we get into Friday and Saturday. I think this high pressure kind of begins to work out, and we likely increase as summertime weather again this weekend for just about everyone east of the Rockies. And going on beyond that, the models are still kind of struggling at any idea of some kind of big-time storm system or cold front after that going into early next week. The models are really kind of delaying it. So what that tells me is the models really don't know. This happens a lot in the wintertime whenever you see these, YouTube thumbnail videos that says massive polar vortex coming, and it's that same video title for a week straight because the models just kind of struggle with it. They think it's coming and then it doesn't quite come, so it's just always kind of way out into fantasy land, and the modelers are still kind of struggling with this. So we'll watch it, but right now, really for the next week, I still see this continued thunderstorm summertime pattern with, of course, mixing in some of these cooler, drier days like we're going to experience tomorrow. So another really important thing to look at here are those dew points, and you'll notice going into tomorrow afternoon, we're very comfortable here in the eastern half of the country, really from Columbia, South Carolina, all the way up the East Coast. Dew points only in the 40s and 50s, even 30s up into New England, so that is very comfortable weather, unlike what we're going to see back out here towards the plains. As we get that, continued warm southerly flow on the other side of that high pressure. Now, again, if you're in these areas that are going to have nice weather tomorrow, don't get too used to it because, again, I think Thursday will still be relatively nice, but as we get into Friday afternoon, that muggy weather begins to kind of try to work its way back in, but if not by then, definitely by the time we get into Saturday and Sunday, that very muggy summertime pattern works its way back in, and we end this week right back to where we started it pretty much before going into next week. And again, you'll notice as I move this way out there, there's kind of some hint and maybe some of that drier air working back in, but that's past 200 hours out, so the models really, again, just are struggling with that, so we won't lock too much in on that hope. Okay, so the one last thing I'm going to talk about here are temperatures before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. So as we kind of look ahead, again, very warm today. We cool down a bit tomorrow and Thursday here in the east just due to that high pressure that I've been talking about. But again, as we go back into this weekend, we warm back up, and you'll notice some of these blues kind of mix in here. That isn't necessarily because of some kind of cooler air mass moving in. That's mainly just because of afternoon thunderstorms and clouds. So it's still going to be very muggy. It's still going to have plenty of sun. It's still going to be really above average during at least some point of the afternoon. And that pattern really looks to lock in for a while here, other than those afternoon thunderstorms kind of cooling us down a little bit during the evening hours. So again, just to summarize, we're continuing the summertime pattern, although we will cool down a bit tomorrow for places really far in the east. So I'm talking about, kind of Charlotte, Columbia, northbound along the eastern seaboard. But even you folks, we're going to warm back up going into this weekend, and everyone else kind of in between the Appalachian chain and the Rockies just continuing this overly summer kind of pattern. And, it's going to bring a lot of that humidity, I'm sorry, I'm struggling here at the end, a lot of that muggy weather, humidity, afternoon thunderstorms, and just kind of, what else you would expect during a general thunderstorm kind of summertime pattern. So with all that said, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all on Thursday.